Today, we shall discuss a very interesting subject, post-humanism. I shall begin by saying a few words about humanism, and from humanism, I shall move to post-humanism. Humanism is a vast and complex subject with a long history. In fact, the roots of humanism can be traced to ancient China, ancient India, ancient Greece, and ancient Rome. But as my topic today is post-humanism rather than humanism, I shall begin with Renaissance humanism. The Renaissance is sometimes referred to as the rebirth of the spirit of man. The spirit of man is believed to have flourished in ancient Greece and ancient Rome and been suppressed and subdued during the Middle Ages. And the Renaissance began with the discovery of an ancient Roman manuscript by Petrarch, and there was a rebirth of the spirit of man. Of course, this narrative is rather simplistic and can be challenged. In fact, has been challenged. But for our purposes, we can understand that, we can state that with the Renaissance, there was a revival of the spirit of man, and the humanism that arose in Europe with the Renaissance continued in the centuries that came after. Renaissance humanism placed man at the center of the world. The stalwarts of the Renaissance, not being feminists, used sexist language, and where they should have said human being, they said man. We shall generously forgive them. This positioning of man as the center of the universe was in contrast to the Christian positioning of God as the center of the universe. Aristotle in ancient Greece called man a rational animal. The Renaissance humanists celebrated the faculty of reason in man. In William Shakespeare's Hamlet, Act 2, Scene 2, the Prince of Denmark exclaims, "What a piece of work is man! How noble in reason!" It is reason that differentiates man from other creatures. If he had no reason, he would not be man. What does Hamlet say? What a piece of work is man! How noble in reason! How infinite in faculties! Man is positioned at the center of the universe. He is guided by reason. He has his own agency. He is infinite in faculties. Using his reason, he works. He carries out what has to be carried out. And he, from the Renaissance perspective, is vested with agency. The Renaissance humanists celebrated human dignity and human potential. What we see around us, the civilizations, the cities, everything that we see around us is the result of man's reason and man's agency. Understandably, the Renaissance humanists promoted scientific inquiry. Again, understandably, science made tremendous progress during the Renaissance. The Renaissance humanists advocated a life of action rather than a life of contemplation. Everything that we see around us is the result of human action, and they lauded and prized human action. They also upheld the value of social responsibility, the responsibility of a man towards his fellow men. Renaissance humanism was basically secular. This is not to say that it was anti Christian. It may not have been anti Christian, but it was definitely secular. A philosophy, a worldview which positions man at the center of the universe cannot be Christian, can certainly not be Christian. We say that humanism is the rebirth of the spirit of man. Renaissance, rebirth, revival. The spirit of man that flourished in ancient Greece and ancient Rome is now revived in Renaissance Europe, beginning with Renaissance Italy. The spirit of man is a nebulous concept. What exactly is the spirit of man? Has anyone defined it? How can you say that every human being shares the same spirit of man? Or even that every human being shares some aspect or the other of the spirit of man? Today we find the positioning of man at the center of the universe is very, very questionable. Christianity, especially in the Middle Ages, was highly theocentric. It was as a reaction to this theocentrism that the Renaissance arose, and Renaissance humanism was basically anthropocentric. Now we ask the question, what right, what right had man to position himself at the center of the universe? What right had man? How can we justify anthropocentrism? There is no logical justification for anthropocentrism. Though it was believed in, though it was preached, though it was proclaimed, though it was lauded century after century. Aristotle called man a rational animal, and humanism celebrates reason, the faculty of reason. But after the rise of Freudian psychology, it is difficult for us to accept that we are all guided by reason, that all our decisions are taken on the basis of logic and reason. Besides, today we are aware of the cardinal role played by hormones in our lives, how the chemicals in our brains influence us and make us take even the most important decisions in our lives. When we are controlled by subconscious drives and by hormones, we are certainly not rational animals. It is extremely significant that the famous Shakespeare passage, which begins with the exclamation, "What a piece of work is man," concludes with lines which embody despair, disillusionment, and disgust. I quote, "And yet to me, What is this quintessence of dust? Unquote. I shall repeat the lines. And yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Unquote. Renaissance humanism believed that man is guided by reason and also that he is an agency. He has agential capacities, that he operates autonomously, that he takes decisions and implements them autonomously. The posthumanists point out that, first of all, if man is blessed with reason, that reason appears to be highly flawed. Second, how far is he agential? How far is he operating autonomously? These questions have to be answered. Look at the man made disasters of the last 5,000 years. The fact is that man has made a mess of everything for the last 5,000 years. And we still say that he is blessed with reason. We still praise his reason, his faculty of reason. The fact is that man is not so much controlled by reason as by his subconscious drives and as by the chemicals in his brain. How far man is agential is a highly debatable question. If William Shakespeare had not gone through the life experiences he had gone through, read the books that he had read, watched the plays that he had watched, lived in the context of the Elizabethan age, would he have written the plays, the sonnets, and the long poems that he wrote? To say that man is autonomous is simply laughable, because every man is standing on the earth which belongs to him and also to the rest of the world. He breathes the air breathed by the rest of the world. He looks at the sky that is looked at by the rest of the world and is subject to intense interconnectivity. There is not much to celebrate about human dignity and human potential. Look at what man has done to man. The history of the world for the last 5,000 years has been a history of exploitation, inequality, violence, destruction, lack of ethics, war, genocide, and so on and so forth. What is there to celebrate about the dignity of man and the potential of man? Science is capable of giving only tentative answers. Frequently, what is proclaimed to be right today by science, is declared to be wrong tomorrow by that very science. The achievements created by science, if any, are offset, more than offset, by the disasters created by science. Prime examples being the nuclear bombs dropped on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In fact, more human beings lost their lives due to war in the 20th century than in any preceding century. This is certainly a feather in the cap of science. Action can result in entangling one in unnecessary difficulties and problems. It is not justifiable to denounce a life of contemplation. Philosophers, writers, artists frequently lead lives of contemplation rather than lives of action, and they succeed in making extraordinary contributions. The social responsibility upheld as a great virtue by Renaissance humanist thinkers was extremely exclusivist, was narrowly exclusivist. The social responsibility upheld as a great virtue by Renaissance humanists was extremely narrow. It did not embrace the whole world. It is doubtful whether it embraced the whole of humanity. Their social responsibility was, first of all, not to anything non human, and even within humanity, only to a small section of that humanity. For example, it did not extend to slaves. Speaking about post humanist thinkers is a rather tricky business because there is post humanism in the Vedas, there is post humanism in Confucius, there is post humanism in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. There is post humanism, in fact, a lot of it in Advaita Vedanta. But for now, I shall mention some rather recent contributors to post humanist thought. I would like to make it clear that this is not an exhaustive list and that I'm only giving you some random names. To begin with, we have the American scholar Catherine Hayles, who works on interconnections linking science, technology, humanity, literature, and the social sciences. She is author of the foundational work, How We Became Post Human. There is Donna Haraway from the University of California. She is author of a cyborg manifesto. Her endeavor has been largely to deconstruct binaries like man slash machine, perhaps I should have said human being slash machine, and nature slash culture. Then there is Francesca Ferrando of New York University. She is author of Philosophical Posthumanism. Her focus is largely on the role of technology in shaping the human subject. Finally, I would like to add to the list the name of Stefan Lorenz Sogner, the German philosopher, who is the founding editor of Journal of Post-Human Studies. Now we shall grapple with the question, what is post-humanism? First of all, post-humanism is a rejection of much of what humanism stands for. It rejects anthropocentrism and wants to replace anthropocentrism with ecocentrism. It rejects speciesism and wants to replace it with species cosmopolitanism. What right have human beings to behave as the lords and masters of this earth? We are shocked when we read of the practice of slavery. We are shocked when we read of the Holocaust. But how do we treat non humans today? How are animals, birds treated? They are shot for game, they are slaughtered for food, they are tortured in experiments. Post humanism draws inputs from various disciplines such as disability studies, such as genetic engineering, in order to formulate its perspectives. Posthumanism rejects the man machine dichotomy. Posthumanism has developed the concept of the cyborg. Cyborg is a shortened form of cybernetic organism, or a person whose abilities are extended as a result of mechanical interference, as a result of technological interference. Cyborgs are rather popular characters in science fiction, but we can say that a real life cyborg is a disabled person or a differently abled person who uses technology in order to overcome his disability. Humanism lauded human reason, rationality, and believed that that was the strength of the human being. But posthumanism sees reason as socially contingent and situationally constructed and believes that it cannot be defined in absolute terms. Posthumanism scorns the concept of human autonomy. There is no human being who is really autonomous. We are all dependent on one another, and humanity is dependent on non humans. To say that anyone is autonomous is simply laughable. Instead, posthumanism believes in interconnectedness. The fact is that everything is connected to everything else. Even the concept of human agency is questionable. We think that we take the decisions we take, but is it really so? Our decisions are to a large extent influenced, even determined by factors beyond our control, such as our genetics, our early experiences, the families in which we were brought up, the societies in which we live, the influence exerted on us by our parents and our siblings, our personal exposure, the chemicals in our brain, the rise of artificial intelligence and machine learning has strengthened the arguments of the posthumanists and made us realize how close man is to machine and machine is to man. I would like to sign off by pointing out that posthumanism has been richly mined in order to create literature and movies. An early example of post-humanist literature is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. We have innumerable other examples, but I shall just name, in a random manner, just name two: J.M. Coetzee's Disgrace and Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go. We have movies like Blade Runner and The Matrix, which are largely post humanist.